if you're trying to get as lean as possible and fat loss is part of your goals, should you be eating 3 bigger meals per day or maybe more like 6? The question around meal timing and frequency is still very popular, and I keep hearing it all the time. The fasting communities swear that less frequency is better, and they will push for long fasts, anywhere between 16 and 48 hours. And then you're gonna have the gym bros who will go for the typical rice, chicken, and broccoli meals every day, and then you have to have 6 of them, right? So what is the right way here? So to give you a bit of a preamble, a study published in the International Journal of Obesity found that eating 3 meals versus 6 meals per day had 0 difference in metabolic rate or fat loss results. So if timing doesn't really matter, then why are so many people still spreading the idea that the more meals are better? And more importantly, what meal frequency method actually does work for sustainable weight loss and fat loss? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be breaking down today. So in this video, I'm going to be revealing the truth about meal frequency and fat loss, including the specific meal patterns that have been scientifically proven to maximize things like fat burning hormones, how to structure your eating schedule based on your unique lifestyle, and the exact meal frequency I personally use with myself and most of my successful clients. So make sure you watch until the end if you want to find out all the details. So now that I'm situated here, welcome. My name is Andres Ayesta. I'm a registered dietitian, and I help busy, high-performing men dial in their nutrition so they can build muscle, lose fat, and actually sustain their results. Now, today we're going to be tackling one of the most common questions that I get when it comes down to meal frequency. How many meals should I be eating to lose weight, or how many meals should I, or how should I be spreading these out throughout the day? And the question seems simple, but the answer has always been completely overcomplicated by fitness influencers, supplement companies, and other people in the healthcare industry. Now, you probably have heard everything from eat 6 small meals a day to boost your metabolism, or just do 1 meal a day and watch the fat melt off, right? There's so much conflicted information on here. So it's no wonder why there's a lot of men that get confused about what actually works. But here's the thing. There's real science behind this topic, and understanding it can actually make a massive difference in your weight loss success. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a few things. Number 1 is the truth about meal frequency and metabolism, why different approaches work for different people, the pros and cons of different types of meal frequencies that you can stick to, and how to determine the best meal structure to fit your specific and unique lifestyle and your goals. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. So let's get right into the science of meal frequency. Let's first start addressing the biggest myth about meal frequency, which is eating more frequent meals will boost your metabolism and it will help you burn more calories throughout the day. Not true. Now, this idea became popular in the 90s and early 2000s, and it's based on something called the thermic effect of food, or TEF. When you eat, your body burns calories to digest and process the food that you're consuming. That typically is about 10% of the calories you consume. Now, the theory was that if you spread your calories across more meals, well, you're going to keep your metabolism elevated all day long, because, well, if 10% of everything I eat is being burned by just simply eating, perhaps I should be eating more, right? It does make sense, but there's just one problem. The research has completely debunked this theory. A comprehensive meta-analysis, which I've talked about these in the past, and they're compendiums of randomized controlled trials and really strong research studies, which eventually was published as a position stand by the International Society of Sports Nutrition, examined multiple studies on meal frequency, and it found that when total daily calories are kept the same thing with protein, there's no significant differences in metabolic rate or weight loss results between eating 2 to 3 meals per day versus maybe 5 to 6 smaller meals per day. Not only that, but in another study, this one a randomized controlled trial, it found that more meal frequency did not produce more weight loss compared to those who consumed only 3 meals per day. Now, the reason for this is simple. What matters is the total thermic effect of food, for example, if we're looking at only TEF, not how you spread it out. So if you eat 2,000 calories in 3 meals or 6 meals, your body will burn approximately the same amount through thermic effect of food, or TEF. More than just that, it comes down to energy balance and whether or not you're maintaining a calorie deficient state or a calorie deficit. Now, while metabolism might not be impacted by meal frequency, your hormones definitely are. And this is where things get interesting. Insulin is one of the most important hormones when it comes on to fat loss. When insulin levels are high, your body is in storage mode. It's storing nutrients, including fat. Now, when insulin levels are low, your body can more easily access store fat for energy. Not want you to think that insulin is a bad thing, it's just essentially the way it is. Now, what we know from research is that every time you eat, especially carbohydrates, your insulin levels will rise. Eating more frequently means your insulin levels stay elevated for a longer period periods of time throughout the day, particularly with meals that are higher in carbohydrates. Now, studies have shown that the longer periods that you go without food, like what happens when you eat 2 to 3 meals per day instead of 6, can potentially help with insulin sensitivity and improve your body's ability to burn fat. In fact, this is one of the major mechanisms behind the popularity of intermittent fasting, because it creates longer windows of low insulin levels, but this doesn't mean that everyone should be immediately switching to 1 meal a day. There are other hormones and factors to consider. In fact, specifically to weight loss, when protein and calories are equal, the differences that exist between intermittent fasting compared to more meals spread throughout the day, also known as a continuous calorie restriction, as long as there's a calorie deficit, the differences between the two things are so small. There may be a slight advantage towards intermittent fasting actually helping a little bit more with weight loss, but it doesn't necessarily make it a superior strategy. Even from the health perspective, both intermittent fasting and continuous calorie restriction have both been shown to improve metabolic health markers such as insulin sensitivity and cholesterol levels. So it's not just about the fact that you're just lowering your insulin levels. So fasting, as we just mentioned, now enters the meal frequency narrative, as we just saw. Now, this is not just about 3 meals versus 6 meals per day, but now fasting strategies again enter into the mix, since they're not all diets, but rather different meal schedules. Let's look at the most common meal frequency approaches as far as fasting, also non-fasting approaches, and we're going to evaluate the pros and the cons of each. The first one we're going to be covering, it's called OMAD, or 1 meal a day. Essentially, OMAD, I'm not going to get too much into the details, but you're literally eating every 23 to 24 hours. Pros, it creates a large fasting window, which may enhance your fat burning capabilities because obviously you're usually eating very, very little. It simplifies food preparation and planning because you only literally have to plan for 1 meal a day. It can work well with people who aren't really hungry in the morning, and those are the main pros that you're going to find from this specific type of dietary approach. The cons was very difficult to consume adequate amount of protein and micronutrients in just simply one sitting. It can lead to post-meal fatigue and energy crashes because again, you're just eating once and a lot of food. It may increase hunger and cravings throughout the day. It's definitely not ideal for muscle preservation during weight loss. In fact, a lot of fasting methodologies have been shown that they're not the greatest for building and maintaining muscle mass. The second strategy is your regular, good old 16-8 intermittent fasting. Now, you're still consuming 2 to 3 meals per day, but then within a shorter period of time, which is going to be about 8 hours versus, maybe consuming it from breakfast to dinner, which is going to be more like a 12-hour window. A few of the pros, it creates a moderate fasting window for potential fat burning benefits, still allows for adequate protein distribution. It can simplify meal planning and reduce decision fatigue, and also works well with busy professionals or people who may not love to have breakfast in the morning. Now, there's some cons to that. It may not be suitable for people who get hungry in the morning. It can be challenging with those who have variable schedules, and it's not ideal for some individuals with specific medical conditions, including pregnant women, lactating women, and other people who may be at risk of eating disorders. And now we get into things like your traditional, typical 3 meals per day type of deal. Obviously, it's a culturally familiar way to eat. It's easy to implement. It allows for adequate protein distribution. It fits well with most work and family schedules. Everybody sits down to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a lot of households, so it may actually work well for you. And it also, I feel, provides steady energy throughout the day because you're just typically controlling the amount of calories you'll be having in most of those different meals. Now, the cons is may not create enough of a fasting window for those who benefit from fasting. It can be difficult to adhere for those who just race and snack habitually, so that's a big problem that happens. And a lot of times it opens up more opportunity for overeating and definitely consuming more calories than what we think we're consuming. And then we have the 5 to 6 small meals per day. Maybe this is 3 meals and 3 snacks, whatever is the case. Obviously, this works for some people. There are some pros. It may help you really control your hunger for those who get hungry very frequently. It can be very beneficial for those with higher calorie needs like athletes, so they can fit all their calories throughout the day. And some people might find it easier to adhere to smaller, easier meals because maybe their appetite is not that great. The problem is it requires a lot more planning and preparation. It creates a consistent, depending on what you're eating, it can create a consistent elevation of insulin and your blood sugar levels, which may not be optimal for fat loss. It definitely can create a lot more worry about food for some people. Like you're always thinking about what you're going to be eating within the next hour or two. Creates more interruptions, so maybe perhaps your productivity gets affected because you're just simply thinking you have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. So definitely not the most ideal type of scenario, but again, it's going to be a very individual, unique situation for each person. So now that we know those 4 different methods, so what does truly matter for weight loss? So if meal frequency doesn't significantly impact your metabolism, as we just saw, what does actually matter for weight loss? Well, here are the factors that are truly important. I've literally talked about these a lot in the past. Number 1 is your total calorie intake. This is still the most important factor. You need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight regardless of the meal timing. 2, protein intake. Adequate protein, which is about 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, it's crucial for muscle preservation during weight weight loss, and how you distribute this protein throughout the day can actually matter a lot more than the total meals that you eat. Now, we've seen that total protein intake per day matters actually a little bit more than how you distribute it throughout the day, which is something I have changed my views on, because before it was not really the case, but more data comes out showing that, you know what truly matters is that you get enough protein throughout the day. But going back to the idea that if those people that are doing fasting methods and different things like that potentially are not getting enough protein, particularly if they're not being super strict about the amount of calories and protein that they're consuming, whether it's through tracking methods or really knowing exactly how many grams of protein they're consuming on a daily basis. Number 3, food quality matters. Nutrient-dense foods are going to help you feel fuller. It will help you maintain your energy levels and support overall health. And the last one is going to be adherence. The meal frequency that you can actually stick to consistently is the one that is going to be working best for you. And the last one is going to be individual responses. Some people genuinely feel better and may adhere to their plan better with more frequent meals, while others maybe do better with larger meals. For example, for me, I prefer to have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, maybe one or snack here and there. I'm not a big fan of having really small meals because I feel like it interrupts my work. It gets my productivity affected, but that's just something that works for me. I also have clients who have very small appetites, and honestly, they cannot have the amount of calories that they need when they split their nutrition in 3 big meals, so they had to have smaller ones throughout the day. So now the question is, how do you determine your optimal meal frequency? Let's talk about that. This is going to be very specific to your situation, but here's a simple framework that I think is going to help you decide. Number 1, consider your hunger patterns. Do you wake up hungry? You might benefit from eating earlier in the day. Do you rarely feel hungry until noon? Maybe intermittent fasting might work well for you. Do you get hungry every 2 to 3 hours? You're always constantly thinking about food. Well, maybe more frequent meals may be more beneficial. Second thing you can do is look at your schedule. A busy executive with back-to-back meetings might do better with 2 to 3 meals. This is what happens to me. I have meetings, I have people that I need to coach. So of course, it's easier for me to be able to just separate my meals into 3 big chunks throughout the day. Someone maybe with more flexibility might prefer 4 to 5 smaller meals. A shift worker needs to adapt their meal timing to their work schedule. Number 3 is consider your training. If you train intensely, having meals before and after your workouts can be beneficial. For those doing multiple training sessions per day, even more frequent meals may be necessary. When I work with professional athletes, particularly the NFL, it's impossible to meet the requirements of a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman player from a professional football league by just eating 3 meals a day. These guys need to be consuming 4, 5, 6,000 calories a day. So sometimes we had to feed them anywhere between 6 to 8 times throughout the day so they can get their requirements met, so they can perform the best. And the last suggestion I'm going to give you, you got to experiment and you got to track. Try a specific meal frequency for 2 weeks and track your energy, your hungers, and your adherence. Then try to hit a different approach for another couple weeks and see how they compare. The approach that feels best and that you can stick to consistently, it's likely going to be your best option. Here's my recommendations that I give most men that I coach. Based on my experience working with hundreds of busy, high-performing men, I've found that a moderate approach works best for most. 3 to 4 meals per day with the following structure. A moderate breakfast, especially if you train in the morning, a substantial lunch, depending on how busy you are. Sometimes you can have more of a substantial dinner and a smaller lunch. A pre-workout snack if needed in the case of you actually work out in the afternoon. It can be considered a small meal or something, even just like an energy bar. A satisfying dinner. Again, it will be something heavier if your lunch was smaller. And only implement intermittent fasting strategies if it fits into your lifestyle and it's something that would allow you to still hit your protein targets. But honestly, this approach, it provides adequate protein distribution throughout the day. It creates some natural fasting periods overnight as well of at least 12 to 14 hours and fits well with most work and family schedules. It allows for social eating and flexibility, so you don't have to be telling people, sorry, I can't eat because I'm within my fasting window, which is kind of stupid. And I think it works generally well for most people. For my clients who prefer intermittent fasting, I do recommend the 14-10 or 16-8 approach, which means 14 to 16 hours of fasting and 8 to 10 hours of eating. And that usually translates to about 2 to 3 meals per day. But honestly, guys, the key here is finding what works for your body, your schedule, and your preferences. Let me quickly share a case study of one of my clients. His name is Derek. He's, I believe, 44. I think he just turned 44. He's been struggling with weight loss despite doing everything right. When he came to me, he dropped and gained the same 40 to 60 pounds for years. And every time he did it, I remember when he told me this, he did it through intermittent fasting. So he swore by it. So we talked about doing things a little bit differently, since in reality, well, that didn't really work for him because obviously he gained the weight back up every single time. So what we did is we switched to starting having a smaller breakfast in the morning and having 3 main meals with one optional snack, including breakfast. The optional snack was in the case he got hungrier during the day or if he wanted to have something sweet after dinner. This approach was fitting better with the schedule, again, since he's balancing a busy work life along with raising 4 kids. We focus on making those meals protein rich and satisfying, most of his carbs around his workouts or when he was most active, and as a result of this, Derek is now down, I think it's 12 pounds in 6 weeks. He's reporting higher energy levels throughout the day. Most importantly, he found a plan that is sustainable because it fits into his busy lifestyle and not the other way around. The key wasn't really the meal frequency itself or fasting, it was finding a structure that worked for his life and that he could maintain consistently. So to answer the original question here, there's no single best meal frequency for weight loss. The optimal number of meals depends on your individual circumstances, your preferences, and your lifestyle. What matters most is, number 1, you need to find a meal frequency that helps you maintain a calorie deficit without excessive hunger. Number 2, you got to distribute your protein adequately throughout the day so you make sure you're getting enough. 3, you got to choose a pattern that you can stick to consistently. 4, don't get caught up in the myths about boosting your metabolism with frequent meals. Instead, focus on creating something sustainable for you or a consistent and sustainable eating pattern that can work for your life. I'm hoping that this video cleared up some of the confusion around meal frequency. Again, I didn't think that I had to do a video like this, but since I get asked about this stuff all the time, I figured I needed to. But if you found this helpful, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for evidence-based nutrition advice. Now, before I go, I completely understand that navigating this process alone, particularly nutrition and all this, can be overwhelming. The constant conflicted information, trial and error, and the frustration of losing and regaining the same 20 to 30 pounds over and over again, it's annoying. And after working with hundreds of people just like you, I've learned that it's not about discipline, it's about having the right roadmap. This is exactly why I created a free masterclass where I break down the 3-step blueprint that high-achieving men use, that I created, to melt away the stubborn fat, build the lean, muscular physique that they wanted to without restrictive dieting, without fasting crazy methods, endless cardio, or sacrificing time with their family and their social lives. In this training, I'm showing you 3 things. I'm gonna help you uncover the number 1 hidden factor making fat loss harder each time that you try it and how to fix that, why popular diets like keto and intermittent fasting might be sabotaging your metabolism and what truly works instead, and number 3, my proven formula to sustainably lose fat, build muscle, and maintain an athletic body year-round, no matter what you do. Hundreds of my clients literally started watching that exact same process in that video, and it's completely helped them transform their lives. So if you're ready to finally stop the cycle of losing and gaining the same 20 pounds, make sure you click the link in the description to access the free training right now. But that's all I have for you guys this week. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm hoping that you got tons of it from this. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like, subscribe, comment if you have questions, and share it with anyone that you feel could benefit from this information. We'll see you guys next week. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Take care.